George, let me ask, today, Trump's post announcing Bongino, he added to his resume that he's I'm just going to get this quote for you. You're going to love it. You probably saw it. One of the most successful podcasters in the country. What do you make of this pick?
Well, it's got nothing to do with actually running the FBI as a law enforcement agency. It has to do with owning the libs. I think there's a little bit of that with Donald Trump. He hates the FBI. The FBI investigated him for his various crimes, including the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents case, which was an open and shut case. But yet, Dan Bongino said that everybody associated with that case should be fired.
One of the most difficult aspects of dealing with the Trump presidency is it's not just that we have an evil, awful person in the Oval Office, but everyone who surrounds him is almost equally. So some people, I feel like, exceed the level of awfulness that is Donald Trump. And we just saw that play out when a horrible, horrible Trump staffer, his communications director, decided to lash out and attack Jen Psaki of all people, and then she turned around and dropped the hammer on him completely, humiliating him. And the failures of the Trump administration, we're going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into this takedown from Jen Psaki, which started as this weird attack from Trump's communications director, I want to hear from Jen Psaki, warning us about one of the recent and I think undercovered new additions to the MAGA administration.
Just days after Donald Trump swore in a conspiracy-peddling far-right commentator with no relevant experience as the director of the FBI, he announced that he would be making Dan Bongino, a conspiracy-peddling far-right commentator with no relevant experience, see a theme here, as the deputy director of the FBI. Now, it's important to note that in the Bureau's 117-year history, the FBI's second in command has always been a career agent with the kind of institutional knowledge necessary to actually run the Bureau's operations, which makes total sense. The last full-time deputy director, Paul Abate, had logged 25 years with the Bureau before being appointed to the position. Before him, Deputy Director David Bowditch had 23 years at the Bureau under his belt. Before him, Deputy Director Andrew McCabe had 20 years of experience. And before him, Deputy Director Mark Giuliano with 25 years of experience in the job. That's what he came in with. So between the previous 4 deputy directors, that's almost 100 years of experience at the FBI. I'm not a mathematician, but that's a lot of years. Now, Dan Bongino's resume, on the other hand, includes 2 years working for the New York Police Department, 12 years in the Secret Service, 3 unsuccessful runs as a Republican candidate for office, and about a decade as a far-right MAGA pundit.
My entire life right now is about owning the libs. That's it.
The FBI is lost. It's broken. Irredeemably corrupt at this point.
Jack Smith, of course, the special tyrant investigating Donald Trump for a fake crime he made up for a fake insurrection. The only thing that matters is what? Chad. What matters? Anyone? Power. Power. You can see what I'm at. Power.
Seems like a nice guy. Now, joining me now is NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and conservative attorney George Conway. Okay, Ken, let me just start a little bit with the history here, because I mentioned the deputy directors and the history of how many years experience they typically have. That's something it seemed that Kash Patel promised or said publicly he might continue. So what happened here?
At least according to the FBI Agents Association, they say that Patel committed to them that he was hoping to and interested in hiring a career FBI agent, as has always been the case in this job. And when you think about it, that would make sense. He's an outsider. Yeah. He's a flame-throwing MAGA partisan outsider. You need somebody in there that knows how to make the trains run on time. This is an incredibly powerful job. Some people were telling me today they think the deputy job is more important than the director job, because the deputy actually supervises operations, is in charge of all the special agents, in charge of all the field offices across the country, has his hands on some of the most sensitive intelligence and counterintelligence operations in the United States. And this is now being handed to a guy with no experience in the FBI and a long experience trashing the FBI.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, there's double. The deputies in many of these agencies are actually the ones who run the day-to-day, thousands and tens of thousands of employees. They do a lot of the work. No offense to the people at the top. George, let me ask, today, Trump's post announcing Bongino, he added to his resume that he's I'm just going to get this quote for you. You're going to love it. You probably saw it. One of the most successful podcasters in the country. What do you make of this pick?
Well, it's got nothing to do with actually running the FBI as a law enforcement agency. It has to do with owning the libs. I think there's a little bit of that with Donald Trump. He hates the FBI. The FBI investigated him for his various crimes, including the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents case, which was an open and shut case. But yet, Dan Bongino said that everybody associated with that case should be fired. Mm-hmm. And so it's really about revenge. It's about owning his enemies. And also it's about retribution. I mean, he really does, Donald Trump. It's just ingrained in him. He wants retribution against his enemies. And by picking two people who are completely loyal to him.
I wanted to play that clip of Jen's Psaki covering Dan Bongino, because I think it's really important to point out the fact that so much of this for them is about, quote unquote, owning the libs. That's what matters to them. They want to upset Democrats. That is the joy they get. It's not in progressive legislation. It's not in making the country better. It's about making the people they see on their phones and on their TVs who really, they just want to be upset. That is what it is all about. And that is what we saw from Trump's communication director right here. Jen Psaki claps back after Trump flack Stephen Chung her for what she left behind in the White House. MSNBC host Jen Psaki smacked back at White House Communications Director Stephen Chung after he tweeted a photo of her stationery he found left behind in a random cabinet with her name on it, mocking him for trying to attack her for writing thank you notes. Tuesday morning, Chung posted the photo of a box of note cards with a navy blue border and Jen Psaki at the top in navy blue script. He posted a relic of the past found in a random cabinet in the White House. Apparently, Jen Psaki was so important. She had personalized note cards made to remind people how important she was. Jen Psaki then replied, "Would hope you had more important things to worry about. You know, the cost of eggs, child care, veterans waiting for care could literally go on. But hey, since you raised it, I purchased these myself to write notes to colleagues and staff to say thank you to them." As numerous commentators pointed out, stationery, with the sender's name, is a long-running form of etiquette even in today's digital age. Contrary to Chung's accusation that the personalized stationery was a sign of Psaki wanting to remind people she was important. It comes from the tradition and is a way of showing you care and respect other people, along with the handwritten correspondence that goes with it. Psaki served in a number of communication roles in the Obama-Andy White Houses, including White House press secretary, and would have had countless interactions with all kinds of people, other heads of state, members of Congress, local and state elected officials, White House, and other government staff representatives from business and charitable organizations, and members of the American public. It would be weird if she hadn't sent out any letters during her time in the White House, and the stationery could have justifiably been considered an office expense since it was connected to her official duties, but as Psaki tweeted, she did pay for them herself. Grandmothers across America are presumably nodding in approval. These people really do not have anything else going on. The Trump White House does not care about helping people. It does not have anything to get done. The MAGA movement and the Republican Party at large are just an agency of obstruction and destruction of our country and of our standing in the world. And of course, we saw that recently with, oh God, it gets harder and harder to talk about this every day. Donald Trump's attack on President Zelenskyy, and someone who I thought provided insightful commentary on that I want to hear from, is Senator Mark Kelly.
We go now to Senator Mark Kelly in Tucson, Arizona. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
You were one of the lawmakers who met with President Zelenskyy prior to that Oval Office meltdown. Senator Lindsey Graham later told reporters he had warned Zelenskyy, quote, "Don't take the bait." Do you think Zelenskyy took the bait? Is that how you understand what happened?
I think he was cornered and he was bullied in the Oval Office. And Margaret, that just makes us look weak. I think Donald Trump was trying to look tough. J.D. Vance was trying to look tough. the only winner in that exchange is Putin, who's a criminal, who's killing, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. So it was a sad day for our country. It was a dumpster fire of diplomacy. It should not have been done. That kind of negotiation should not be done in public in front of cameras. When we had our meeting earlier in the day with Zelenskyy, he has this like habitual gratitude. He was very thankful. And the chairman of the Armed Services Committee kicked the cameras out of the room before we started to talk. Mm-hmm. That's the way this should be handled, not what Donald Trump did.
Well, the Treasury Secretary, who was just with us, said you can't get an economic deal without a peace deal first. So it seems the dynamic is changing in terms of what the Trump administration is putting forward here. What was your understanding of what Volodymyr Zelensky's concerns were?
Well, I mean, his concern is that he doesn't have a security guarantee and he's being asked to give up minerals, that this is a business deal. Margaret, we're about to celebrate our 250th birthday as a country, and I didn't think we were just in it for the money. I mean, we are a country of values and principles. We stand with our allies. He needs security guarantees. Yeah, I understand this concept of an economic deal and a ceasefire, but the economic deal comes after the ceasefire. None of that makes sense. They need to get in a room, including with the Russians. I mean, have the Russians given any indication that they want peace? Our Treasury Secretary questioned whether Zelenskyy wants peace. Of course he does. Mm-hmm. He has his population being murdered, raped, children are kidnapped. He wants out of this situation. But he's having a hard time, obviously, negotiating this in public. By the way, I mean, his English is not the best. So this is hard for him. To corner him in the Oval Office on that kind of stage was wrong, and it makes us look weaker as a nation, and it makes us less safe.
You've been to Ukraine a number of times. Our last guest, Mike Turner, has been to Ukraine a number of times as well. Neither the president nor the vice president have it all. J.D. Vance, the vice president, said to Zelenskyy, those are propaganda tours. Is that what you did? Did you go on propaganda tours?
No, I mean, I went into Patriot batteries and, talked to the troops that every night are defending themselves from incoming ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, trying to keep their population alive. I met with soldiers, some of which are, amputees at this point, and soldiers that just came from the front lines to talk to me in person about what the situation on the ground is. I met with pilots there who were about to get their F-16s, and we talked specifically about, how can you use this airplane in combat? Yeah. I think J.D. Vance, the vice president, with all due respect, it sounds like he's watching videos on the internet. Mm-hmm. And to say to Zelenskyy, you're not being thankful enough? I mean, Zelenskyy thanks the American people all the time. Yeah. And I got to say, Margaret, if we can end this, and I want this to end as much as anybody, but it has to end in a way that the Russians are going to respect. And what was in the Oval Office yesterday was a demonstration of weakness. And I can tell you, Putin does not respect weakness.
I want to ask you about the U.S. border. The number of migrants crossing the southern border illegally in President Trump's first full month in office plunged to a level we haven't seen in 25 years. This is according to data reviewed by CBS. This seems like this is good for your state. Do these numbers prove President Trump's theories right?
Well, I think the numbers being down, that's a good thing. What we need long term is a negotiation with the Republicans on longstanding border policy. What the administration is doing, especially with ICE raids in schools, with flying, repatriating people who often aren't only criminals in military airplanes for intimidation, talking about housing people on Guantanamo, that's for intimidation. It's good the numbers are down. That's a positive thing. Yeah. We need a border security agreement. We need legislation. We also need immigration reform. Talk about my state for a second. We've got a lot of dreamers. They deserve a pathway to citizenship. We need a plan for farm workers as well.
Secretary of Defense Hegseth is sending another 3,000 troops to the border, including an aviation battalion and Stryker vehicles, CBS has confirmed. Now, these soldiers aren't allowed to intercept migrants. Do you understand the mission, the intent? You have oversight over armed services, so I wonder how you feel about this.
Well, I don't feel good about it. I mean, the way this should be handled is if we could work together within the United States Senate, Democrats and Republicans, get the Border Patrol more money, hire more Border Patrol agents, give them more resources to do the job they're supposed to do. When you do it with troops, that affects their readiness. This isn't what they're trained to do. Then they don't get to train to do, that Stryker battalion doesn't get to train to do the job that they may need to do one day. I don't want to see us in a conflict around the world, anywhere. But what prevents that is for our allies to realize that they're not going to win in a fight. And when they see us doing things like this, police actions with the military, that also is showing the rest of the world that our military is less capable and we are weaker. And that affects everybody's safety.
Lastly, because you sit on the Intelligence Committee, I want to ask you about something President Zelenskyy said. He said in Munich, Ukraine has intel the Russians are sending troops to Belarus to use it as a launch pad militarily into perhaps not just Ukraine, but other European countries. Are you concerned about that?
Well, I am very concerned about what Putin will do next if he comes out of this and thinks he got a good deal and this was worth his time and effort and loss of life. He doesn't care about Russian soldiers. He obviously doesn't care about the Ukrainians. Yeah, that would be very concerning for me. I was in the Baltic nations, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, earlier this year. They are very concerned. That would be a staging ground for them to attack the Baltics.
Understood. That's why we're watching it so carefully. Senator Kelly, I appreciate.
We are dealing with just the most difficult of times with these people. And yeah, it's tough to fight back, but it becomes increasingly important to do so. Every day we have agency. We can fight back. We can push back. We can make this country better. It's what we got to do every single day. It's what we're talking about every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.